Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Modern Cfo podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Seski. Today, I'm joined by Luc Jodet of Arianee. Luc, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Andrew.
So Luc has been running this firm, co-founded it actually, and has raised capital through a unique way, which we'll get into several years ago through what was, again, a great exciting time in 2017. Is that right?
So in 2018, we started the project in 2017 with my co-founders. We're five co-founders now, and we really started with some interviews with brands, and then once we had kind of like we figured out what the brands were really looking for around the initial idea. We wrote what was called, at the time still called, which was a big thing back then, a white paper, which really describes the entire concept that we want to develop, and then raised what was indeed called at the time, or still called, an ICO, right actually at the tail end of the ICO craze. So we really were a bit late to the party, since we raised in 2018, between May and November 2018. So that was really right after the craze. Fundraising was a bit difficult. We still raised a decent amount, since we raised about $3 million.
So let's dive right in onto what Arianee does. So it's really updating using the latest technologies to ensure authentication of high value branded products. Is that a good way of putting it?
That's a good way of putting it. Really, the idea is to create a digital identity for physical products. And we started with products of high value, in particular the luxury industry. And there's really three reasons you're creating those digital identities. The first one is really it's a proof of authenticity, meaning it's a way to figure out that your product is actually real because it was created by the passport was generated by the brand. The second one is a proof of property. So it's a proof of ownership that is because it's freely transferable from one owner to the other. And the third one is really the history of the product, because every time something happens to your product, you can record, you can notarize a new event in the NFT or in the passport of the product. So it's really like a digital passport for your product, and it was those three main features.
And for those who don't know how incredible this is, Luc's got one of the few ICOs that have been really successful and continue to grow. For those who don't remember, in 2018, at the beginning, in 1 month, in January, something like $500 million had been poured into ICOs over the excitement of utilizing blockchain technology across a number of industries. And today we are, really, really excited to chat about one of the projects and one of the initiatives that's stood the test of time, and a really great use case for using the tech and streamlining, a number of really inefficient systems.
It's true that the bar is quite low. I mean, just being alive 4 years later is 3 years later is already a big thing. That's true.
So the title of the podcast is The Modern Cfo. Can you tell me a little bit about what that means to you? And I think that you really represent the cutting edge of what a finance professional looks like. Modern technology and a decentralized team. You've got team members across the world. So can you tell me a little bit about what that means to you?
Well, especially for what we're building, we're actually there's a new way of financing. There's also an entire aspect of what of what we're building, which is an economical incentive infrastructure. So that there's more than just classically the work of the CFO is to manage, not do the bookkeeping, manage the books, manage the treasury, have financing, manage some of the, especially in an early startup, manage a lot of the regulatory risks, and in general deal with the corporate structure and how to manage this. So of course, accounts every year, organizing the different legal requirements linked to a corporate structure. Deal with investors, of course, raising funds and so forth. Now we have an additional layer because of our blockchain and crypto infrastructure or architecture, is that we have to deal with those crypto incentives and the life of a token. So the entire protocol is actually completely decentralized on an Ethereum virtual machine, so an EVM based blockchain, and on the Ethereum mainnet, if you're familiar with it. And on there, we have the only way of paying for the service that we have on the platform is with a crypto token. So you need to really create those sorts of incentives and manage also how people have access to this token, which is the only mean of payment. So to me, that's kind of like the modern CFO for, at least for what we're doing. The CFO starts encompassing a lot more aspects than just the, let's say, the corporate management side of activities.
So what do you think the most important aspects and traits and skill sets are in your role and that may be relevant for others listening? You know, especially in the crypto space, I would know that the first major hurdle, like a lot of emerging industries, was regulation, just an inconsistency across, different countries while trying to, really finance something that was gaining international attention. So what do you think are the best traits to kind of carry in terms of both operation and reprioritization pathway that you have to constantly be on top of? And maybe include how the excitement around blockchain technology has kind of ebbed and flowed. I know today that Bitcoin is trading over $50,000 and Ethereum is, approaching $2,000. Is that volatility something that also causes excitement to learn more and be more educated for, some of the companies you work with as well?
Yeah, so a big aspect of what we do is education around the subject, because it is a new, it's really like a financial innovation, the entire blockchain and crypto sphere. So a lot of our work is educating the different brands that we work with. And the first 2.5 years we were educating, but there was no craze or no actual really strong interest, not strong interest, but there's not really any demand. It was like people were interested in the subject, but it wasn't something that they felt pressured into going. This has changed dramatically in the last 6 months because of the bull run. So the bull run of Bitcoin, whose price was multiplied by 5, and Ethereum is 6. I think it was multiplied by 6 now between last summer and today. But I've actually seen something even stronger. Is that 10 days ago, when Elon Musk and Tesla announced that they had purchased for $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, all of a sudden I have a lot of corporate executives and directors who I speak with who are actually now actively asking me. It's like, and I can see actively considering, it's like, is it something that we should do? To be fair, Tesla is not the one that really started this craze. Michael Saylor, of the CEO of MicroStrategy, is really the one that launched the subject when in September he bought for, I think it was $250 million worth of Bitcoin for his treasury, for MicroStrategy's treasury, and really presenting it not as an investment, but as a treasury management, being like it is an edge against debasement of the currency, and really having a structured discourse around why Bitcoin was something that every modern CFO and CEO should have on their books. But even though he's the one that really did a lot of the groundwork and explanation and crafting the message and the idea, ultimately, it's when the richest man in the world communicates, and say an entertaining man on top of that communicates on the fact that his company, which is also a company that is quite emblematic now, bought for over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. I guess that's where really it becomes mainstream and everybody starts talking about it.
And I recall Elon being skeptical would be a good way to put it on the adoption of a lot of different cryptocurrencies, and the kind of change of tune I think is surrounding an underlying frustration with the way things are being handled. And I think a lot of light was shed on operational and systemic failures during the pandemic. So when you found
about that, Michael Saylor actually says it. It's like in 2013, he's on the record saying that he thinks Bitcoin is something that's going to disappear. It's completely useless. And then he said really the pandemic and the K-shaped recovery is what really changed his mind about Bitcoin. And it seems like the decision to get Bitcoin on his balance sheet is something that really happened after the start of the pandemic. So it was quite a quick turnaround and a major change in his thinking. And his idea was really that we're printing a lot of dollars, and so dollar is not the best way to keep your treasury.
And we talk about you being a pioneer and vanguard of early days. I think most people who had a philosophical introduction to the space, it normally was around some event. And I think a lot of it really started in 2008 during our housing collapse here in the US. And you actually started a company. Most people talk about it being a part of the space once a few white papers and put some dollars into the system. So do you have this same kind of philosophical underlying, or did you see a market inefficiency that you wanted to capitalize on, or maybe a bit of both?
First thing is I'm an entrepreneur first and not an investor. So I have to admit that Bitcoin, I first heard of it, I think it was 2013, like a lot of people with the Silk Road kind of news where it was, announced that where we discovered that one of the big use cases at the time for Bitcoin was to purchase, illegal products on a dark web platform called Silk Road. That's the first time I heard of it. I heard the kind of the libertarian pitch for it. And I, once again, not an investor at heart, much more an entrepreneur. And the idea that it was, a better version of gold, and it was the kind of digital gold, was not something that convinced me because I have to admit, just the first thing is that I don't even think gold is an interesting investment. It's not productive. It's not something that that as an entrepreneur I understand. So even though I own Bitcoin now, and I do think it's actually something that you should have on your as a personal investment, say a wealth management strategy, it's not something that of great interest for my activities. The real thing that got me to change my mind was when Ethereum was introduced in 2015, because Ethereum was really the idea of creating a more than just a digital gold, kind of like a store of value. It was actually building a decentralized computer. The idea being that I could actually write some code, push it on Ethereum, and it would exist as long as Ethereum keeps on running, and there was no way to censor it. That was, to me, fascinating. So I really got to the crypto world and got into it, much more involved with Ethereum. And especially because at the time, before Arianee actually had a previous company that I co-founded, was a renewable energy marketplace where we facilitated the buying and selling of renewable energy in Switzerland, renewable electricity, and mainly hydro and solar for large corporate accounts. So we had like different banks, insurance companies, construction companies purchasing the electricity directly to producers of renewable energy in power purchasing agreements, contracts. And at some point, 2016, so I'd already heard of Ethereum, already interested, but right 2016, I actually got a call, several calls from different people who were asking me, oh, you do energy traceability, do you use blockchain? I was like, no, I don't use blockchain. And they're like, oh, you should look into it. So it kind of was my excuse to go down the rabbit hole. And in the end, figured out that Ethereum and blockchain was actually not a really good technology for energy traceability. However, I became really interested in the underlying technology. And that's when I started looking for an actual opportunity for something that made sense. And that use case with Arianee, the digital identities for product, is really what the best use case I found, the most mature, the most the one that really had the most chance to work. That's really what attracted me to this project, because it was a way to use that underlying technology in a way that made sense.
Thanks so much for that. That's really helpful. I think it would be interesting to help connect the dots for maybe some listeners who are aware that these currencies exist, but maybe don't understand the difference between purchasing ETH on an exchange versus actually utilizing the technology in the way that you do through creating this digital passport. So for those who don't know, the digital passport that Arianee uses actually is a non-fungible token. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So can you explain a little bit more about the process of what it looks like to take a high value branded product, say something valuable like a watch, and create a digital passport and actually record the authenticity and maybe some of the provenance of the product?
Yeah, of course. So a non-fungible token is really just in a way a tradable record, the same way an Ether or a Bitcoin is a tradable unit of a tradable record. The difference between a non-fungible token and what we call a fungible token, which are your Ethereum, your Bitcoin, is that when I take one Bitcoin and another Bitcoin, they're interchangeable. It's the same thing. Or if I take one Ether and another Ether, it doesn't matter if I have this Ether or this Ether. It's always going to be the same. I don't have any preference. It's the same thing as a dollar bill in a way. If you gave me this dollar bill, another dollar bill, it doesn't make a difference. It still has the same utility, same value. A non-fungible token is the idea that actually here one of those tokens is not exchangeable, is not the same as another token. So technically for us, it's so for instance, we work with Breitling and we create passports for every one of their watch. Every one of their watch has a serial number. So every one of their digital passport is unique because it has a different serial number linked to the non-fungible token. And so your non-fungible token, your NFT, is unique because of that serial number. And that's how you actually record the fact that this digital passport is linked to this watch and this digital passport is linked to another watch.
I've heard that there are some luxury watchmakers that have literal signatures in a book after purchase. So do you see this as the future of the way that all high value items are going to be checked for authenticity, or maybe even more so on making a very transparent supply chain? Where do you see the future value of having these records easily accessed? Is there going to be some sort of innovation that you can then leverage from that, or is it purely capitalizing on this inefficiency?
The real reason we really see in the longer term vision is the idea that a digital identity for every product actually enables an ecosystem of services. So what do I mean by this is the fact that you can prove that you own a real product. So you can prove that you own, a Breitling watch, for instance. You can then imagine having access to a lot of different services, such as one-click insurance. Today, if you need to get insurance on a watch, you actually need to provide three documents. One is the proof of purchase, so like the receipt of your purchase, your invoice. Another one is a little piece of paper that is called a certificate of authenticity, which is something that is ubiquitous in the luxury watch industry, which is basically a little piece of paper, the signature we're talking about, signed by the watchmaker, that says the person that actually owns this piece of paper owns a real Breitling. And then the third thing you need is this little booklet, the servicing booklet, because especially if you want to be able to resell easily your watch at a higher price, you actually need to show that you've serviced your watch on a regular basis. And usually what's estimated is that a regularly serviced watch actually has a resale value that's about 30% higher than a non-serviced watch. So today, all those things are for most brands, it's all paper-based. The idea of what we're doing is actually replacing it by a digital identity, digital record. Why blockchain is interesting here compared to a regular database is that when you're talking just about a database at Breitling, at the different brands, then this is all controlled by Breitling, and it's not truly transmittable from one person to another freely. The good thing with the paper-based solution is that, well, once you have the paper, just like a physical dollar bill, you can give it to another person. Your physical proof of authenticity, paper-based proof of authenticity, and little booklets and paper-based invoice can all be given from one owner to another. When you're talking about something recorded on a centralized database, then it's actually something that you all have to ask permission to the brand. Here, with a non-fungible token on a decentralized platform, you can transmit it freely to the next owner. And another reason why what we're building really worked with the luxury watch industry is because the resale market, secondhand market for luxury products is worth about $21 billion per year. And it's booming, it's growing really rapidly, but actually 3/4 of it is linked to the watch industry. So reselling your watch is something that is, or your luxury watch is something that's extremely developed. It's actually the product that in the luxury industry is the most resold. And what we're building here is really something that helps, that or fluidifies that market to actually resell your watch later on. It's not the only thing, of course, you can do. As I said, one-click insurance. We also have special recommendations. You have the idea of being able to access special VIP clubs based on proving your ownership. We actually, one of the brands we work with told us that because they're a really high-end watch brand, when they launch and they don't sell, they sell only a minority of their products via their own stores. Most of them are sold via third-party retailers. So they decide one day to launch a VIP club where you have to register, on their website to say, hey, I am actually an owner of a Vacheron Constantin and I'd like to have, be part of that club. And here, the issue was not that they didn't have enough people, is that they had too many people sign up. They had more people sign up for that club than people that actually could possibly own one of their watches, because they know how many watches they sell, and they could see that they had sold less watches than people who had registered. So here, with that proof of authenticity, that can be, or that with that digital passport for the product can be transferred from one person to another, you can actually prove that you're a real owner of that watch and not just someone that wants to have access without being an actually part of the club.
I'm really glad that you took the time to help explain that you've been in projects that are not good use cases for the technology. I know that there was a number of projects with just trying to utilize it in a way that was going to end up being more costly to the firm or just really clunky. And you found a really great kind of niche to drive forward, not only just a really good application, but also be right at the front edge of the education process. So
when you talk about blockchain, I think there's a really good, there's one thing that the listeners should really remember is there are a lot of people, I mean, you hear it sometimes like everything will be on a blockchain one day. I don't think so. And the reason why is because actually blockchains are slower than than classical databases. And even though it's going to, scalability and all improvements are going to make it a little bit less clunky compared to what they are today, they will always be slower than a regular database. However, so databases will always be, regular databases will always be necessary. However, the way it's usually described, best, Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz actually is the one who came up with this analogy. The idea that blockchain is a new platform, the same way the mobile phone was a new platform. And mobile phone, for instance, when the first time you had it, if you put a spreadsheet like Excel on your phone, I mean, that doesn't work at all. And even today, with your bigger screen, more sensitive screen, it's still a bad experience to try to use a spreadsheet software on your cell phone. Your computer is still better than that. However, your cell phone or a mobile phone comes with a bunch of other features that open new perspectives. And for the mobile phone, it's the idea of connectivity. It's mobile. You can actually take it. You have that 3G connectivity. You have the GPS. You have a camera. And all those things are what makes it not superior to a computer, but a different platform to your computer. And blockchain is the same thing. It's not a superior technology compared to a SQL or NoSQL database. It's a different platform that actually has this decentralized aspect. And the decentralized aspect is just as interesting as what I was saying. It's like, when you're on a centralized database, you don't really own the data that you own. That you don't own your record on that database. There's always an admin sys that can delete it. When you're on a blockchain, you actually the owner of the record, the owner of the non-fungible token of our passport is the true owner. Meaning there's no admin sys that can come and delete it or change information. What it brings is really that same level of ownership for a digital record that you have when you have a physical paper-based record. Nobody can just from far away take away your physical passport or a physical dollar bill, let's say. Well, same thing with Bitcoin or with a non-fungible token digital passport for us. And nobody can actually from anywhere can take away your ownership of that digital record.
So let's chat a little bit about short-term and maybe long-term. What's exciting right now I know that in the future, we'll be able to have one-click insurance and we'll be able to democratize access to a whole suite of, financial services. So maybe we could talk about that in a moment, but we just came through a pretty challenging year in the world. We're a number of miles apart at the moment, but 2020 was a very, very challenging year for, the entire world. So coming into 2021, what's the major focus this year? What are you most excited with? Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some exciting brand partnerships that you're looking forward to? And then if you want, please feel free to expand out, what's really exciting you in that some of these operational challenges will be solved in 3 to 5 years and the space will continue to develop really rapidly. So maybe if you could give us kind of a short term and, what's exciting, on the horizon.
So first of all, the 2020 for us was challenging, let's say, on an operational, on the operations, because we had like a lot of people had to be lockdowns and had to move to a full remote way of operating. So our entire team is actually fully remote now. We still have an office or a couple offices, one in Paris and one in Geneva, but it's barely used. However, on the business side of things, it's been actually. It's nice for us, but it's unfortunate for the world. But it was an accelerant, really something that really accelerated our business. The fact that everybody was remote. A lot of the brands we work with had invested heavily in store experiences, and with the idea that stores should actually be a prime place to or really an important focus with this kind of idea that it should be more than just a place where you come and see a product and buy it, but actually a place where you come and spend time and live and have an experience more than just a place of purchase. Fortunately, the COVID crisis kind of, scrapped all those plans. And a lot of those brands were in a situation where they had to, they saw digital and new digital experiences as a way forward to get out of this crisis. And so that's, for us, it's really been a real boost to our operation and to our business. So once again, 2020 was challenging, but actually it wasn't bad for business for us. So now for 2021, the main thing for us is launching more and more brands. Breitling was the first brand to actually put our digital certificates on our digital passports on every one of their watch. And since January 1st, every single one of their watches is sold with an Arianee passport. We have Bash, who actually started a first public-facing program where it's actually to facilitate resale. So on one of their product, they put the Arianee certificate, which once you after 6 months or a year of owning, you actually want to resell, you have an easy one-click solution to just with our digital passport, get all the information about the product that you actually own and transmit it to a resale platform and really reduce the hassle of posting your product on a resale platform. We have Vacheron Constantin, who was actually one of the first brands to work with us since almost the beginning of 2018, who now is actually going on their full production, and that should start in March. And we have a bunch of other brands, which I'm not at liberty to talk with just now, that will be launching between Q2 and Q3. The communication with luxury brands is always, something that's under tight control, but there are going to be some amazing news for sure.
That's incredible. Congratulations. Just before we hit record, we were talking a little bit about something that gets you excited about the maybe closer future than we realize in terms of decentralized finance. I think in the world of private company stock where Nth Round operates for the most part, we see a huge movement towards making pre-IPO companies more easily tradable. And I think that does trickle down into the ecosystem that you're really helping push into development with, other illiquid products, goods, and services that may never have been traded again if they didn't have, the ease of having something like a digital passport. So is that something that's still kind of top of mind for you?
So absolutely. I mean, one of the beauties of blockchain is what is called composability. So as I said, when you have one of our passports, it's yours and you can decide what to do with that information and who you want to share it with or not share it with. And since you can share it with, you can give access to, different protocols that you might be interested in using. Today, one of the fastest moving development in our sector being developed on Ethereum, but also on some other blockchains, is what's called decentralized finance, or DeFi, as they like to call it. And here it's really the idea of recreating a lot of the tools that the regular or the old school financial or centralized financial sector actually created. So, collateralized lending, you have synthetic products, futures. One that I'm particularly interested in is lending, because a protocol called Aave actually started. So Aave, really, the way it works is you put some Ethereum in collateral or a cryptocurrency in collateral, and you can use that as a collateral to borrow another cryptocurrency. However, they're starting to experiment with real life products. And those real life products, the one they're experimenting with is real estate. Soon you'll be able to use tokenized real estate as a collateral for a loan on Aave. And because some of the luxury products, whether it's emblematic pieces like a Birkin or really high-end watches, are seen as an investment and as reserve of value, I'd be really interested to see in actually starting to experiment. We're starting to experiment with the idea of using our digital passport as in the product and the underlying product as a collateral to get a loan on Aave or other platform. Like there are plenty of others, like Compound is another of those lending platforms. But using a tokenized physical product as collateral to get a loan is really a way for us to open up a utility of having those tokenized or digital passports that we're making.
So this is a huge benefit to existing owners of high-end goods. One of the things I was thinking about and laughing at just before we hopped on was the fact we both have our road bikes in. I've got mine right next to me. You've got yours just behind you. Is cycling something that's been helping you stay sane and getting in those workouts, or are you reading anything that you'd like to share for other people to go check out?
So that is actually the stationary road bike and coupled with Zwift is actually kind of like my big discovery. So I've been cycling for a decade now, but I'd never done stationary cycling. And but unfortunately, when confinement happened, we were not allowed. At the time, I was in Paris. I'm back in Switzerland now, but at the time I was in Paris, and you were not even allowed to go out for sports. So I purchased one of those those stationary smart trainers and Zwift, and actually it became something that I'm really interested for my regular business, because I discovered first that it's actually the experience is of course not the same as being on the open roads, but you do find a lot of the same exhilaration that you have with cycling. So drafting is something that drafting with other people. So the idea of really, being in formation and being in a peloton is something that works on Zwift. It's not perfect, but you do get that kind of feeling of draft. And then the second aspect is you have those products that you can purchase and improve your bike, which is, I have a carbon bike and that I'm really proud of. A certain part of cycling is also, having some good gear that you're proud of. And yes, performance is something, of course, but there is also an aspect of, just having a nice bike is also something that you're happy about. And
it just does. It's a part of the sport.
Exactly. But so Zwift has this aspect of like you can actually upgrade your bike and everything. And what we're really interested in is how you could actually, bridge the physical and digital world, where if I have, this bike here, which is a Trek frame, it would make sense for me to be able to use it on Zwift, for instance. If I have a digital passport for my frame and my wheels and all the different parts of my bike, maybe I can reconstruct it on Zwift and be, able to actually ride my actual bike on Zwift. It's something we're interested in for other video games as well, with being able to, and here Fortnite's really been an inspiration, is if I own, a pair of sneakers, sometimes a lot of sneakerheads actually just buy those pairs just to store them, because they, if you wear them, then they're not in mint condition anymore. And so it's you're ruining them. But you could actually imagine, with a digital passport, buy them, keep them in the box so they're not ruined, and actually wear them in a digital world, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's Call of Duty or some other of those worlds. There's really something interesting with bridging the physical world and digital world, with being able to prove in the digital world that you own something and being able to wear it there. And that to me became really evident with the lockdown, where you didn't have that many chances to actually get so for me my nice bike out, but I ended up spending a lot of time online. So it started to become actually interesting for me, this entire idea of wearing a product in a digital world.
That's amazing. So where can people go to find out more about Arianee, and where can they go and find more out about you if they want to continue to hear some of your thoughts? And I know that you're going to be building and driving this entire piece of this industry forward for years to come. So where's the best place to reach out to you and to track the company's progress?
So you can find us, so our website is arianee.org, and we are on Twitter. So Luc Jodet, LucJodet, that's my handle on Twitter. And otherwise, lately I've been spending actually a bunch of those Clubhouse rooms. So if you're on Clubhouse, I'll be happy to to chat as well. We're also on Telegram if you're interested, or if you're more tech inclined, we have a Discord. You can find all of this on our website, and we even have a monthly newsletter if you want to keep track and receive news from us every month.
Well, thank you so much for an incredible conversation. This is the first podcast, I think, that I've gotten to say the words bike, Birkin, and blockchain. So pretty excited about this episode. So we'll let you hop and continue to build out. Great company. And I'm looking forward to circling back soon. But thanks so much for being on the Modern CFO podcast.
Thanks for having me.